When you out there without care, I was out of tune. But it wasn't because I didn't know, no. I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Possibly. I hope that you're having the time of your life. Think twice. That's my only advice. Oh, who do you think you are? Oh, bless your soul. You think you're in control. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. Just like me. Hello, everybody. It's a beautiful Monday morning. It's the 9th of October. Can you believe it? October, November, December, 3 months before the close of 2023. It seems to me like it was just yesterday that we were standing on the precipice of 2022. But here we are, coming to the conclusion, almost closing the chapter on 2023. It's unbelievable how time goes by so fast. Guys, how did you enjoy your weekend? Are you ready for another week? Are you ready for another week of hustling and bustling? Are you ready for another week of grinding and making it work? I think you are, because I am. Guys, I have a story to tell you before I begin. Story time. You know how sometimes on TikTok you have story time, on Facebook you have story. I've got a story to tell you. So this past weekend, we went to a Chinese restaurant that I love going to. I love this particular restaurant. And you know, they have this outside sitting area. Okay, you can sit outside. That's right by the exit and entry point of the restaurant. So, you know, we're sitting there, we're having a great time. And then these Chinese guys, because, you know, it's a very famous Chinese restaurant. It has lots of Chinese people that go there. So these Chinese guys come out of the restaurant, and I can see they're a bit drunk and they're rowdy, you know. And one of them stands not too far from where we were sitting, and then he hawks and spits. You know, he does this thing where he goes, and he spits like on the ground, but not too far from where we were sitting. Without even thinking, I just shot up out of my seat. I walked straight up to him and I said, "Hey, man, what do you think you're doing?" And of course, he looked lost. He couldn't really speak English. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "You can't see that I'm sitting there with my family? I mean, my kids just ordered the Kung Pao chicken, for goodness sake. And here you are spitting, you're hawking, like close to our table. You don't think there's anything wrong with that?" This guy, instead of saying, "I'm sorry," instead of saying, "That was rude of me," he starts to give me lip. He starts to go on about how, I can do this and there's nothing wrong with spitting. Right in that moment, I realized that the guy didn't know how much danger he was in. I mean, he didn't know who I was. He didn't know what I was capable of. He didn't know that when I was a teenager, I took a karate class and my sensei, Sensei Noble, taught me the quarter blood technique. This guy was completely oblivious. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know the skill, the capability, the wherewithal, the dexterity that resides in these hands. He just had no idea. So I said to him, I said, listen, man, if you keep giving me lip, it's going to end in tears. So he kept on going. And guess what? There were 2 hits. I hit him and he hit the ground. Blood everywhere. Blood coming out of his mouth, his nose, his ears, his eyes. Then all of a sudden, his wife comes running over to me. She falls to her knees, grabs my waist. She looks up at me and she says, please don't kill my husband. He's the only thing between me and poverty, she said. I looked down at this Chinese woman. I said, girl, far be it from me to make a widow out of you, but you need to put your husband in check. He can't go around spitting all over the place. She looked at me. She said, sir, it'll never happen again. I said, girl, it better not. The guy stands up, blood everywhere. I mean, it looked like an O.J. Simpson crime scene, for goodness sake. He staggers up, walks over to the car, and I help him to the car. Guy couldn't even drive. He was so messed up. I open the door. He sits in the car. His wife looks at me and she says, sir, he can't drive. I said, well, girl, you need to sit in the driver's seat because he's going to kill you. So, she says, well, could you pull him out of the driver's seat, put him in the passenger seat so that I can drive? So I do that, and this young Chinese girl comes around. She sits in the car. She sits in the driver's seat, rolls down her window. She looks up at me and she says, now promise me one more time, you're not going to kill my husband because he's the only thing between me and poverty. I said, girl, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't do it. What you need to do is go about your business. Okay, everything in that story is true except the part where I hit him. That didn't happen. But everything else did happen. We did have an argument about the hawking, just so you know. But I didn't hit anybody. Just so you know, okay? I'm being honest. I didn't hit him. I came close, though, but I didn't do it. Everything in me said, you better knock him off. You better knock his head off. But I didn't. Sandra says, I knew it. Sandra says, I knew it. You just messing around with me. All right, guys. No, seriously, I didn't hit him. I didn't do that. But we did have an argument. We did. Guys, did you watch Mutale Mwanza's interview? She was on Diamond TV. She never gives me an interview. I mean, go figure. Mutale Mwanza is my relative, okay? She's not related to that guy on Diamond TV. The handsome young guy that was interviewing her. She's not related to him, but she's related to me. And if I called Mutale Mwanza up and I said to Mutale, could you come over to SML TV and do an interview with me? Do you know what she would say? She would give me an earful. She would first she'd start talking about how, well, first of all, you never do call me. Why now? Why have you called me now? But anyway, she did this interview with this young guy, and I saw a moment of vulnerability in Mutale. The only thing that I was trying to wrap my brain around was the fact that she said, she's praying and she's drinking at the same time. I wasn't getting that. Okay, did you catch that? Did you hear his guys? Tell me in the comments for those of you that watched that interview. Did you catch that? Did you catch the part where Mutale says, I'm going through hell. I've been drinking and praying at the same time. Did you hear that? That didn't make any sense to me. It's either you do one or the other. You can't do both. Okay, you can't drink and bombard the gates of glory at the same time. You can't get drunk on whiskey and seek the face of God at the same time. You can't do, what is it, Jameson or Jemison? You can't do that and start saying the Lord's Prayer. You do one or the other. You can't have it both ways, Mutale. Choose one or the other, but you can't have both. I thought that was a bit strange, but I do love you, though. God knows I love you. Yeah. So, what was I saying? Yeah, I watched that, and let me know if you watched that. Let's talk about Brian Munduble. Is it Mundubira? Mundubire. You guys know this past week he was in Parliament acting crazy as usual. He was trying, basically what Brian Munduble was doing, Brian Munduble was trying to school the Deputy Speaker of the House, Moses Moyo, on the procedure on the rules on how you can raise a point of order. That's what he was trying to school the Deputy Speaker. In other words, Brian was trying to tell the Deputy Speaker how to do his job. And the Deputy Speaker called him out on it and said, no, you can't tell me how to do that. You can't school me on how to do my job. And so Brian became flustered. Did you see how he lost his mind? He lost his temper. He lost his temper so much that he became inaudible. Did you catch that part where he was so angry, he was so furious that there was a point where you couldn't even understand what he was saying? He was so angry. He was so mad. No, there's going to be a problem in this house. Now, the only thing I noticed, though, it just shows you, and I have to say this, it shows you how much different we are from the South Africans. The South Africans' parliament is like a zoo. It is like a veritable zoo. And if you're South African, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you compare the South African parliament to Zambian parliament, we are saints. There was a point where the Deputy Speaker, Moses, turns to Mundubile, who is the leader of the opposition in Parliament. The Deputy Speaker says to Mundubile, Honorable, take your seat. And Mundubile complies. In that moment, I thought to myself, that would never happen in South Africa. Those South Africans, they act like a bunch of orangutans in there. South African Parliament is a veritable zoo. It's like a bunch of orangutans trying to make sense of what they're doing. They can't do it. They can't even rub two coins together in Parliament over there in South Africa. So when I look at the way the South Africans conduct their Parliament compared to the way we do it, we are saints. So while Brian sits down after being told by the Deputy Speaker, Honorable, take your seat. He sits down, but he's still angry. He's upset. So because he's upset, the Sergeant of Arms, the Deputy Speaker tells the Sergeant of Arms, Sergeant, can you remove that man there from this house? Remove the Member of Parliament. Now, about Sergeant of Arms, did you see that? Did you notice how unsure he was of himself? The Sergeant of, for those of you that don't know, it's like the police of Parliament. They're the guys that are tasked with keeping order. If you run amok, if you go crazy, the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker calls upon the Sergeant of Arms and says to the Sergeant of Arms, walk over there and take that man or that woman out of Parliament. Now, Sergeant of Arms in this case, he was doubting himself. He wasn't so sure. He stands up first. It's almost like he was trying to pander to Brian Mundubile. It was almost like the Sergeant of Arms was trying to calm Mundubile down. Like, the guy with the white gloves, the Sergeant of Arms, he had the white gloves. He's the officer in the office in Parliament. Walks over to Mundubile. He pats him on the back. And you could see what he was saying. Sir, just come down, sir. Come down. Come down. In Zambia, we say come down. We don't say calm down. We say come down. Come down. Come down, sir. Come down. It's okay. It's all right, let's just go. But what got me was how unsure he was of himself. He wasn't sure whether or not to get him to eject Munduble. And then the deputy speaker, very forcefully, the deputy speaker says, Sergeant of Arms, can you do your job? Remove that man. And then very quickly, but Sergeant, training. Come down to me fire. Training. Now, this is what I found funny. After he was ejected, after Brian was ejected, okay, he goes and he says he's declared war. He's declared war on the deputy speaker. Did you hear that? Did you catch that? I've declared war on and I'm ready to suffer the consequences. I've declared war on this Moses, this deputy speaker. Hey, he's not going to allow us we're not going to allow him to act like that. We're going to screw him. Hey, we've declared war. Sit the heck down. Do your job. You're overreacting. Okay? You're overreacting and you're overrating yourself is what you're doing. Okay? Just do your job. He's the deputy speaker of the House. He has an upper hand over you. You don't. Okay? And when you say you're ready to suffer the consequences, you know what that means? It means you're going to put yourself in trouble. That's what's going to happen. Goodness. All righty. Thought I'd share that with you guys. Somebody, William says it was because it was the first time to have such unruly and maybe the one to be removed by those guys. Yes, because you don't see that a lot. Zambian parliament is the most civil parliament I have ever seen. For the most part, our parliamentary procedures are very calm, very, they're cordial. But every so often, you get one of these PF thugs that become unruly in parliament. And even when they are elected members of parliament, sometimes they act like thugs in there. So Brian Munduble yesterday was so upset, he was inaudible. There was a part where you just couldn't understand what he was saying. He was so angry. And angry for what? He overreacted. And I agree with this comment. You don't often see that. All right. Yes, they're used to lawlessness. Lindsay says, I think Zambian members of parliament act like school kids. She said, South African parliament is rough only during the opening. The reason behind that is if the ruling party did not address specific issues, we do not accept a peaceful new opening. There's reason behind that. I'm not understanding what you're saying here. This is not the U.S. That guard wasn't sure about what to do. In fact, he was like a coward. He wasn't sure. He was very unsure of himself. He didn't know. No, sir. Calm down, sir. Today, it took the deputy speaker to say, "Iwe sergeant of arms, can you do your job?" Ninkupela order, ninkupela order, nakupasa order iwe ucheze na Brian yapo. Nakuuza uyo muntu muchose muchiteni muno. Ucheza naye. Kuba member of parliament. Oh. Guys, I gotta go. Love you. Thanks for watching. Peace.